Now let's move over to our Abuja studios now, where Ibrahim Adra is standing by with more stories. Hello, Ibrahim.
Yes, indeed, Melinda. Now, on the day that 5 people were killed in Plateau State, President Muhammadu Buhari has launched a tractor ownership scheme to accelerate development in agriculture in that state. The president, who was on a 2-day working visit, indicated support for the project, which would end up boosting farm produce, especially in cultivation of rice and Irish potatoes.
In a bid to transform the agricultural sector, the Plateau State Government, in a tripartite arrangement of public-private partnership with the state government, an engineering company, and Plateau All Farmers Multi-Purpose Cooperative Society, introduced the Tractor Ownership Scheme. The scheme is to enable farmers own or hire tractors and farm implements with ease and reduce the stress of using obsolete farm implements, which have been a major setback to the farmers.
The Anchor Borrowers Program, we know that Plateau State...
At the launch of the scheme, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, observed that maintenance of such equipment should be taken into consideration, while beneficiaries are encouraged to put the tractors to good use.
These tractors, they will last for 2 generations if they are properly looked after. But if not, after 18 months, they will just back up. So I congratulate the Plateau State government for this initiative. And I'm very pleased the Minister of Agriculture is here. And I think these audience need to know that we have cut down importation of rice by more than 90%.
Governor Simon Lalong did not mince words on the danger of primitive systems of farming.
I accepted to facilitate the tractor ownership scheme to enable interested farmers of the state to own tractors with efficient and effective farming operations across 3 geopolitical zones of the state.
The scheme, which is to last for 36 months, is to help farmers and as well as farmers in cluster groups to own tractors for modern arable farming and provide tractor hiring services across the state, thereby increasing farm productivity, raising farmers' incomes and welfare, and ensuring timely cultivation of arable land, especially during the rainy season.
And still talking about issues of development, state governors have been advised to take up the responsibilities of providing primary health care and basic education in their states. This was the focus when the Development Alternatives Incorporated DAI hosted leading figures from the government, civil society and the international community at a round table to discuss the role of government in delivering the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs.
According to the World Health Organization, public education is the first pillar of primary health care.
We trust the system to do it for us. We had to bring outsiders.
That explains this gathering of government and health officials, education experts, and the international partners of the Development Alternative Incorporated. The organization believes the roundtable will yield tangible and achievable recommendations that governments at all levels can implement to improve governance and service delivery for the Nigerian people.
Is the transition towards promoting accountability, transparency, and public financial management to achieve development outcomes.
The 2 governors present, Governor Nasser El-Rufai of Kaduna State and Governor Umar Ganduje of Kano State, share the opinion that for an effective health and education system to trickle down to the grassroots, state governments need to get involved in the provision of primary health care and basic education.
No one should blame the federal government for poor educational statistics in Nigeria. The states should take the full blame and responsibility for that, because primary education, primary health care starts and ends with the state governments.
But also the states tend to be overstretched. But what is important is the real definition between what the federal government will do in the health sector and what the state government will do.
The Minister of Health, Isaac Adewale, decries the huge responsibilities facing teaching hospitals.
The teaching hospital is not meant to look after someone with headache, fever, diarrhea, skin rash. That's not what they are meant for. They are meant to look after those complex cases. The fellow with headache, with fever, with skin rash, you go into primary care center.
The Development Matters Series seeks to strengthen the link between central governance institutions and service delivery performance at the state level in key sectors.
Expressway eventually.
And as women continue to press for more relevance in the society, the chairman of the Association of Professional Women Engineers of Nigeria, APWEN, Mrs. Laulu Adidakwa-Eshida, is challenging the gender to push for success even in the face of challenges. Mrs. Adidakwa-Eshida was speaking against the backdrop of the International Women's Day and her investiture as the 7th chairman of APWEN for the Lagos chapter.
Are unemployed, while many young engineers in engineering are still learning to balance work and home. The inability to attain this balance has resulted in some losing out in lucrative jobs. The founding members of this association had a vision for the female engineers of this country. They envisioned a future where women will be found actively engaged in every facet of engineering divisions, not as onlookers, but as leaders who make things happen.
And that's all from Abuja. It's back to Melinda in Lagos.
Many thanks, Ibrahim. As Lagosians continue to groan under the newly introduced land use charge, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, has asked the state government to put the new tax regime on hold. The president of the LCCI, Mr. Babatunde Ruwase, made this appeal at the stakeholders' dialogue on the new land use charge. The stakeholders' dialogue comprises the LCCI, the Lagos state government, and the organized private sector.
FCA to please consent.
This forum provides an avenue for extensive dialogue with key stakeholders determined to find an inclusive solution to the highly controversial land use charge introduced by the Lagos state government.
We understand that only 300,000 properties are paying the land use charge. Yet, the number of property identified for tax is in excess of 700,000. Therefore, the emphasis should be on getting more property into the net rather than imposing a local budget. The state government should take advantage of the debate in order to bring more owners into the net. We further request that the implementation of the land use charge be put on hold while the gray areas are being specified.
It was paying for this. So when people use.
The Lagos state government believes figures don't lie. It's of the view that the annual projection could no longer sustain funding and renewing infrastructures of a megacity.
The numbers don't lie. So, given the current economic realities, we need to keep pace with the degradation in our infrastructure.
This is an opportunity for the organized private sector to air their thoughts about the land use charge, and Mr. Timothy Olawale of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association did not mince words.
This government's negligence should therefore not be visited on the residents through astronomical review of the land use charge.
I believe we will dialogue and we will find a way around this like we did in 2001, 2002. I'm very optimistic about that.
While Lagosians bear their frustrations on the land use charge as another financial burden thrown on their shoulders in the face of biting economic conditions, the Lagos State economic team might just need to go back to the drawing board and find a more inclusive tax regime for the good of the people.
To aviation matters now. The management of Arik Air has been explaining the emergency landing made by one of its aircraft in Accra, Ghana on Tuesday. A statement released by the airline says, and I quote, Arik Air flight Pt.3 from Lagos to Accra on March the 6th, 2018 declared an emergency in line with standard operating procedures when smoke was detected in the cabin 81 miles from Accra. The captain of the flight briefed the passengers accordingly, assuring them that the aircraft was under control and safe for landing in Accra. The aircraft, a Dash 8 Q400, landed safely in Accra without further incident, and all passengers disembarked normally. End of quote. Arik Air's explanation is coming in the face of messages circulated on social media by one of the passengers claiming that the plane had caught fire and alleging ill treatment meted out to the passengers after the plane landed. And AMCON wants a private market that will help dispose assets and has details on business news.
You first. First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. The Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, has proposed the establishment of private markets to enable the corporation get rid of some assets tied down in its book due to inappropriate valuation. In a forum for AMCON's valuers and receiver managers, the executive director of AMCON, Mr. Ebere-Chukwu Uneze, said the creation of the AMCON market will involve key players in valuation, insurance, legal, to help address irregularities. According to him, AMCON has a stockpile of assets cutting across critical sectors of the economy, making them very difficult to get rid of in the regular open market. The Central Bank of Nigeria today injected the sum of $355.4 million into the interbank foreign exchange market in the continuous efforts to boost liquidity and alleviate dollar shortages. The financial market regulator says the amount was released in the retail secondary market intervention sales to meet requests in the agricultural, airlines, petroleum products, and raw materials and machinery sectors. Just last month, the CBN injected $321.4 million for the retail secondary market intervention sales and $210 million for the interbank forex market. The federal government is expected to receive the World Bank funding support for the parts sector at the spring meeting of the World Bank and the IMF, which will be holding in Washington from April the 16th. The special assistant to the president on power, Mukhtar Tijani, told Channels Television today that part of the World Bank's funding will be deployed to help expand the current off-grid power solutions targeted at small-scale industrial clusters. Mr. Tijani also said that there are no plans to raise electricity tariff until proper enumeration of consumers are done and the level of power supply is improved. Listed salt refining giant, we're talking about Nascon Allied Industries, is reporting an impressive full-year 2017 earnings result. The company's profit before tax increased to 7.9 billion naira last year, up from 3.51 billion naira it posted in 2016. Its revenue grew to 27.06 billion naira from the total of 18.2 billion naira, which was reported in the same period in 2016. The company's board has already proposed a dividend of 1 naira 50 kobo for 2017, up from 70 kobo it proposed in 2016. And let's see how the Nigerian stock market fared today. Price increases from key bellwether stocks lifted local equities higher today, despite the negative performance from their major sectors. Let's join Teniola Shibowale for today's transaction figures.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Positive sentiments were sustained into a fourth session this week at the close of Friday's trading day at the NSE, as the all-share index rose further by 0.18%, despite sell-offs recorded across the banking, insurance and the oil and gas sector. The gains were attributed to price increase posted by industrial bellwethers, including Dangote Cement and the consumer goods sector, which added 27 billion naira to the market's total value. Top among 32 advances are the share prices of Lasaco, Cadbury and Japol, while 27 decliners were led by FTN Cocoa Processing Company. Access Bank contributed over 90% to the overall turnover of 1.53 billion shares traded for the day, as traders expect the bull run to continue next week. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Teniola Shibowale.
It's also a positive close for most of the world's leading stock markets following a very strong jobs report from the U.S. and reports of a likely meeting between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Let's see the numbers for today. Thank you for watching Business News on the last trading day of the week. I wish you a profitable week ahead. I'm Anne Nwaudo. Back to you, Melinda.
You first. First Bank.
Thanks, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10. Serena Williams wins her first match at the WTA Indian Wells event after a 15-month layoff owing to pregnancy. That's on Sports News. Join us again.